Even though it's new, it feels so vintage. As far as in your box, of course, you're gonna get your mouse. Now, it also comes in a white version, and then you're gonna get this bag filled with all these goodies. You got some extra feet, some grips, a cable tie, a screwdriver, and all your paperwork. Now, underneath my mouse, you're gonna see I already have the extra feet on there. Straight out of the gate, it has these really tiny ones. You see those little tiny ones there that go in the corner? I definitely like a little more coverage to give me that balanced flow. And the middle foot is actually not on there at all. So again, I think changing these feet out really made the mouse just glide and feel a whole lot smoother. Let's go and talk about shape and dimensions. And right now you're looking at the length of the mouse. This is the grip width. This is the rear flare width. Highest point on the rear hump. Lowest point on the front without pressing any buttons down. The lower front flare. The upper mid flare. The upper front flare. Now we're going to take a look at some heat signature grip points. And of course this will differ from hand to hand, but I'm going to show you as far as my core grip here. You all know this is a smaller mouse for me. And whenever I grip it, if you can see it in here, it doesn't even sit into the back of my hand. Pretty much straight up a fingertip mouse. So I'm gonna let my hand sit on here for a little while, let the heat transfer from my hand and fingers to the mouse, and then I'm gonna let it go, and you can see exactly where I'm gripping it. And as you see right here, you're getting a little bit of heat back there. Let me pull it up a little bit. You can see on these sides, my finger's right there. And then over on the front, which you can really barely see, is a little bit lighter green up there. And then up towards the front. I'm really not getting anything on the rear back there, as you can see. Now I can also pull this mouse into the back of my palm since it does have that hump in the back, but I am pinching my fingers together, as you can see. So if you got smaller hands, I can see you pulling that hump in the back there, really locking those shots, rather than with some with me with the bigger hands being more fingertip. And whenever I let go over here, you can see where that primary hump is, pretty much wraps around my entire palm in the back there, because again, I am pulling that mouse back and really engulfing it in my hand. So there's no denying this is clearly a smaller mouse, definitely too small for me, but of course we're not talking about what shape and size is good for me. I'm just trying to show you guys a mouse here because shape and size and grip preferences will be different person to person, so who really cares what mouse is good for me or how it fits me? I just want to show you again the size of it. Now a simpler way for me to describe the dimensions and the shape of this mouse is putting it right next to the Pulsar X2 V2 size 1, the mini version. One thing I'm going to tell you that's different is the OP1 is much slimmer. Clear as day, much slimmer. And you tell that right hand to hand, just going 1 to 1, even though these both are smaller mouse. Put my hand on this one and then going to this one, I can feel, again, my thumb and pinky definitely coming a lot more closer. Over here, it's spread out a lot more. And just for clarification of that, this is exactly where my mid grip point would be on the OP1. And this is where my mid grip point would be on the X2 V2 size 1. So as far as size in the comparison, I mean, this is it right here. I was going through the closet, pulling out mice, looking at the Fanatic Bolt or the Viper Mini, and it's not any of those. It's really not. This is no Viper Mini. This is a slimmed down version of the X2 V2 size 1 to a T. Now taking a look at the weight of the OP1K, we're going to slap it on a scale here with the cable doing what it's going to do. We're getting at 52.1 grams, if you can see right there. Now again, compared it up to the X2 V2 size 1, we're getting 51.8. It's actually coming in less than a wired mouse. Come on, that's just crazy. Now, as far as the build of the OP1 8K, it is incredibly solid. I can go above 10 pounds all the way around this mouse. You can see we're hitting up to 13 pounds, and I'm not getting any flex whatsoever, up to 14 pounds. And believe it or not, even on the bottom, it is incredibly solid. I can probably go right up to 6, 7 pounds before it starts flexing. But of course, none of us are pressing our mouse on the bottom. The build of this thing is solid. Now, as you just stated, and as you saw with the force gauge, this mouse is built incredibly solid, top to bottom, all the way around. But I do have one issue that I got to put in with build. That is as far as my 1 and 2. They definitely have some rattle. So let me shake the mouse and just take a quick listen. Now, of course, you're not going to be shaking the heck out of your mouse by any means, but what I notice is whenever you're using a mouse, and say if you're one to kind of, you're moving over here, then you lift it up and set it down, you definitely hear that rattle, that clanky, that plastic, that cheap vibe within your 1 and 2 moving around so much. And right along with hearing it, you feel it as well. You can see the 1 and 2 from the back here just bobbles left and right, and then up front here, again, you got that bobble left and right. So if you're one to dance around your switches quite a bit, you do feel it. Again, different flex up here than over there and just kind of bowing out. And talking about sound, let's go and listen to the buttons on the OP1. We'll compare it up to the X2 V2 just so you can hear a difference. And what you were looking at there before I started talking was my ambient sound noise. And then we got the microphone right in front of us to get that raw pickup. Now, as far as your stock buttons, you're gonna get the Kale GX switches on 1 and 2. Over here, I actually have an Omron switch because you can change the switches in this mouse. Over here, we have the stock Kale one, and then on the sides, we're using Kale GM 2.0. So again, just to reiterate, the left button is Omron, our right one is the stock switch. So as far as the clicks and feel of this mouse, well, that's really gonna depend on which switch you put in there, but talking about the stock ones, I really love those Kale GX. They put it in there, they're snappy, they're crispy, they don't feel like they got a lot of play. Over here, coming to the Omron, which I usually really like because they're a little softer and to the point, but again, comparing it straight up to the Kale GX, they feel mushy and definitely just unpleasant compared to the Kale GXs that come stock on the mouse. And as far as the side buttons, just like the stock Kale ones, incredibly crispy. I will tell you, my front one, I feel like I get a little bit more travel than the rear one, but nothing deal breaking by any means. But like I said, none of that really matters because you can just swap out your switches. Endgame Gear sells packs, I believe they're like $7. Get which ones you want, try some out, swap them in there, and you're good to go. A couple quick notes about changing your switches in this mouse. Number one, it is incredibly easy, but number two, one of my connections on the mouse here was very loose. So over time, if you're one to really swap your switches quite a bit and play around with a whole bunch of other ones, I can see us having some issues right there. I don't know, is that just my copy or whatever? Because again, one of my connections was totally fine, but my other one was slightly loose, and down the road, that scares me a little bit. The other thing that really scares me with this mouse are the screws that hold the switches in. They are incredibly small. I can see a lot of people losing those, and once you lose one, you're kaput. Endgame Gear does not include extra screws with their pack of switches. If you lose one screw in here, you're not going to be able to use your mouse. So seriously, Endgame Gear, put 4 screws in each pack of replacement switch that you sell. Didn't Asus actually make a wireless mouse with interchangeable switches already? So it's really nothing new. Now, as far as performance of this mouse, it was absolutely spot on. Never once experienced a delay, a lag, a disconnection. That's even going all the way up to 8K, which sometimes I do have some issues with some of the Razer 8Ks, but with this one, again, probably because it's being wired here, no hiccups, delays, whatever, incredibly snappy. One thing I forgot to mention is the cable on this mouse. And how could I forget to mention the cable on this mouse? Well, I can tell you how. It's a cable on a mouse in 2024. Now, taking a look at the OP1 8K software, it looks about as old school as a mouse with a wire on it. You can adjust your liftoff distance 1 to 2 millimeters, your DPI levels up to 4 increments of 50. You got your button mapping, and now when we come to advanced settings, you got motion sync, polling rate 1000 to 8000, slam kick filter, and then you got left button multi-click filter, and all the other multi-click filters, SPDP, which is off, GX speed, GX safe. If you're anything like me and have no idea what any of this is, luckily I shot an email to Endgame Gear and asked them. They replied back, so feel free to pause the video and read the email. So what are your final thoughts on the Endgame Gear OP1 8K? I'll tell you my final thoughts. It's, for the most part, a solid product minus that weird 1 and 2 issue I had right there. It's also coming in at $75, and we can sit there and argue, oh, hey, it's good to have a high-performance, cheap option. But again, when you're looking at Pulsar mice, or heck, many great wireless mice coming in at $100, it's crazy to say get this at $75 and not that at $100. I think if this was coming in at $50, it would definitely have more of that value proposition and that push to go get it. I mean, come on, even pro gamers use wireless mice. So don't go on giving me none of that phony baloney. Oh, wired mice are gonna perform better and be more stable and solid.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important announcement.
I personally don't give a shit what it will do. I'm not going back to wired mice.